Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm going to let everybody kind of come on here. I wonder if it's possible to get everybody's faces. I can see Nancy. Thanks, Nancy.
Hi, I'm back to muting myself.
You're good. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to get started in 2 seconds here with forbearance and deferment, I guess I should say. All right, so I'm going to get started. If you don't know me, I'm Linzee Ciprani. I am one of the agents in the Westchester office, and I have a team. We have about 9 people on the team, 2 admin, and then we've got a number of agents on an expansion team in Philadelphia, and then we've got agents in the Westchester office. And so, welcome. You're also getting me in my bedroom today, so welcome to my bedroom. But that's how life is these days, right? So we are going to be talking through forbearance a little bit today, and I'm actually going to get my screen ready to go here, and I'll be sharing my screen. But before we do that, I just want to make sure that I ask all of you guys, well, you're going to have to unmute for this, so you can't just sit back and listen. You're going to have to give me some feedback here, but I want to make sure that we get through and talk about everything that you might have questions for. And you might not even know what you have questions about until you hear kind of the content that we go through. But we were talking as a leadership group for Exton and Westchester, trying to figure out, gosh, what do we really need to teach on, and what things do people need to learn about? And so I said that I would teach on this, and a big reason behind that is back when everything fell apart in 2006, 2008. I was working for Matt Fedek. A lot of you guys know that name. And we became what I'm going to self-coin the short sale king and queen of the area. We did tons of short sales and foreclosures. We really learned how to do that at a high level. And we used to have agents paying us to do their short sales, and then we would give people referrals as well back. So probably closed about 200 a year back in those days. And that's how I cut my teeth in real estate, was going through that entire thing. And so at the core, that is, it's a lot of what made me who I am today. And we are choosing to teach a little bit about all of this because we think that there is a possibility of us going back in, right? So when everything happened with COVID, you saw Keller Williams go knee deep into the shift book fast because we believed we were going to see a shifting market, right? And we did see a shift, whether it was, a small one or a big one, we saw a shift. Now we're seeing more than any other time I've ever been a part of, multiple offers on listings to the point where, last night we had 30 some offers on one property. And on the other one, we had over 20. So it's crazy right now. Things are different, and we obviously have low inventory. But with that being said, we have some of the highest unemployment numbers we've seen in a very long time, right? And we're still seeing forbearance. Well, big numbers in forbearance. How about that? I'm going to say it that way. So with all that being said, if you could unmute for a second, or if you don't want to unmute, that's fine too. But if you could unmute and tell me, what are you hoping to gain out of this? And if you're just here to learn, that's great too. But if there's something that we can cover together, I want to make sure I try to cover that.
I'll start since I was one of the first on the screen.
Yes.
I guess I'm just here to learn, but I also recently encountered a listing that would involve forbearance, and I'm still trying to get it on contract, but yeah, so, and then I took class in short sales, so I'm just Not hoping that people have to go that direction, but you know, there are a lot of people out there that have some issues.
Yep. Awesome. If you're looking to figure out, do those people need to go the short sale route? Do they not? And how would you figure it out? Right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Who else? Just here to learn from Leslie. Awesome. Mary.
This is Ann.
Diane.
I just I'm pretty familiar with short sales, and I've done those. I'm happy that we haven't been doing them,
Yeah.
but I think that I just don't understand if you have a client or even a friend who's, in trouble, what I don't even understand the new forbearance, like what you could tell them as a trusted advisor. That's
Perfect.
what I'd like to know.
You will walk away understanding that much better, and you'll walk away knowing exactly what's happening right now, because I took all the stats and figured out all the stats, so that we can walk away from here being more educated and know exactly what we need to say to people, right? Which I think is the most important part. Awesome. Don't have a microphone. Awesome. Learning. Okay. Anybody else have anything that they want to make sure they walk away from here with? And here's the deal. At the end of this, if we didn't get to that, we can absolutely get there. And then if we want to move forward and do more courses or classes on some of this stuff, we can do that. All right. Anybody else have anything that they know they want to walk away from this with? Cool. All right. If you have something, just stick it in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. Hold on. I just did the wrong thing. Hold on. I'm just kidding. And let me bring everything in that I just created for this. So really quickly, now I can't even find it. Let me stop my share really quickly. So who here knows the difference between forbearance and then the deferment? Does anybody here, are you willing to take a shot at telling us what you think the difference is? Awesome. I don't even think you guys can see this. Hold on. Well, then you guys will do really well if nobody feels like they can answer that. So here we go.
I can give it a try.
Yes, do it.
All right. So forbearance is basically time off from paying your mortgage, versus deferment is putting that dollar amount on, tacking it on to the end of the loan.
Can be, yep. Yeah. So, the forbearance plan is a temporary reduction, and that's one of the biggest things, or suspension. And thank you for taking that. You're right. And we're going to just make it even more understandable after that. So temporary reduction or suspension of your mortgage payments. Entering into forbearance plan can give you some financial breathing room, right? But it doesn't give you a ton. And that's why a lot of us that have been in the business for a long time believe that we're going to see some massive problems coming up in the next month or two here. If you own your home and you're experiencing financial hardship, especially as a result of COVID-19, you may be able to receive forbearance plan. So the forbearance plan doesn't erase the amount you owe on a mortgage, right? So that's always important, but either does deferment. At the end of the forbearance plan, you have to repay what you've missed, but you do not have to repay it all at once. And there's some thoughts around that. Some of the forbearance plans, you do have to pay it all at once. So, and you guys will get a chance to have this entire slide deck after we're done too, if you want it. So what you have to remember is, repayment plan or a deferral, you would resume your monthly mortgage payments after the forbearance is complete. So with this resolution, the missed amounts are added as a non-interest bearing balance, and it's added to the end. So sometimes you'll see somebody with, so here's what will happen. So you've got forbearance where somebody will say, hey, for 3 months, we're going to allow you to not pay your mortgage. But then at the very end of those 3 months, you're going to have to pay. So in other words, in March, a lot of people went into forbearance. So April, May, and June, no payment, right? July, that was all going to be due all at once. Or they could tack it on to the end, which was allowing the deferral. The deferral normally adds it on to the end of the actual loan, right? So here are repayment options. And again, you guys can have these after you're done, so don't feel like you have to take pictures or anything, but you can reinstate your loan, and that means that you're in a financial plan, or you're in a financial position to do something where you can actually pay them. So what we saw was a lot of people that were going into forbearance, they were actually able to still pay their payments, right? But again, if you're not able to do that, then those 3 payments that you missed are going to be tacked on right away. Repayment plan or deferral, you would resume your monthly mortgage payments after the forbearance is complete. With this solution, the missed amounts are added as a non-interest bearing balance and is due at the maturity or earlier at the sale or transfer of the property, or refinance or payoff, whatever comes first, right? And then the third option is the loan modification, right? Which is what we saw a lot of the last time we had short sales, guys. So that is a mortgage assistance where you can experience a permanent impact, you know, and you've got something going on. So COVID, for example, if your whole business went down, or you've got somebody who, gosh, you know, owns a restaurant and they're not able to operate the way that they were before, right? They may actually modify that loan and do a rate reduction. And then that way, you know, they might say, hey, you're going to have a 40-year loan now, or 480 payments instead of the 30-year loan, right? And they're going to tack that on to the end too. And then you've just got a longer period. So those are the 3 different ways that they can kind of get around it. And that's what people are looking at right now. What you need to know, this is like what's actually happening in our world. So as of last week, we had 3.9 million homeowners that remained in active forbearance, and 7.4 of all active mortgages are in those forbearance. So 7.4 is actually a really high amount. And this is according to Black Knight, which if you don't know Black Knight yet, that would be something to write down. So Black Knight is something, they actually will calculate all of this, and they will keep track of exactly how many active mortgages are in forbearance at all times. Now, obviously, we've seen a huge uptick of that, but, you know, and we're continuing to see it go down month over month, actually, which means that people are actually continuing to pay. So what happened is when they went into forbearance and they said, hey, I need 3 months off, they still paid their payments, which is what I did, right? So I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And I am an active investor. So we have multiple mortgages. And when everything kind of went down, it was like, okay, let's choose forbearance for a little bit here. And so we had, 5 or 6 loans that we put into forbearance. Now, we still paid it every single month, because that was one of the options that I could still have, was to still pay it. If I didn't pay that every single month, though, it would have all come due on almost all of my loans. One of them, they allowed me to tack it on to the end. But almost all of them were like, hey, come August 1st, you're going to owe all of the money you haven't paid. So here's the deal. What happens with people then when they're going into forbearance is, you know, if they can't pay it right now, most of the time, they're not going to be able to pay it later, right? That's just going to be this huge problem for them in August, because most people are going to spend their money. They're not going to save it. Now, in my case, I did it. I went into forbearance just in case I had to, because I wasn't sure what was going to happen, right? So if you have investment properties and you don't know that, you know, your tenants are going to keep their job or be able to pay, you might have chosen to go into forbearance. And we did see a huge uptick recently in investors going into forbearance. That's one of the biggest areas, and you'll see that in a second here. Okay, so with all that being said, there was, however, a $5,000 gain in FHA forbearances and a $10,000 gain in, like I just said, in portfolio loans. Portfolio loans are, you know, multiple investment properties probably in a portfolio, and that's why you're seeing that huge gain there in forbearances, because a lot of people have a lot of tenants that are actually not able to pay. 5% of the active forbearances declined, however, over the past 30 days, which is great news for us. However, keep in mind that we're still higher than where we want to be. With the above being said, though, the mortgage delinquency soared to a 10-year high. As of August 18th, 3.9 million homeowners remain in active forbearance, representing 7.4 of the active mortgages. All right. That other number there is actually really important. If you're meeting with sellers or meeting with people, they should know that actually represents 833 billion in unpaid principal right now. So the good news around all of this stuff is the mortgage delinquencies continue to improve in July, falling 9% from June, which was good. And then August has fallen too. We're still waiting for all of those numbers to come out. And 340,000 fewer past mortgage payments than the month before. So again, that was really good. Early stage delinquencies, so which are 30 days past due, have fallen below the pre-pandemic norms, which is great. This is a good sign, and you can see why there. Foreclosure started to tick up slightly for the month. So again, pre-COVID, you guys, we didn't see that many foreclosures. We didn't see a lot of stuff like happening there. So yes, we're going to see now that the $600, oh my gosh, the payments the government was giving everybody, that 600 started to go away. And so now you're going to see people start to have problems. You're going to see people default a little bit more. It only takes 30 days to be past due before you start to go into those numbers, right? And then they start looking at foreclosure numbers. So then we've got, driven by record low mortgage interest rates, prepayment activity edged slightly higher in July, hitting its highest point since early 2004. All right, so the bad news with all of that stuff is some 376,000 homeowners became 90 days or more past due in July. So again, remember, we were talking April, May, June, July is when a lot of people had to pay, right? And a lot of us that watch those numbers regularly believe that this would happen once forbearance was over. So a lot of us thought, okay, those 3 months are going to go up, and then a lot of people are going to not be able to make that payment. I was actually pleasantly surprised that a lot of people did make the payment, and a lot of people came out of it, but it's still really high numbers with people not making that final payment there. So that means that serious delinquencies were up 20% from June and are now the highest they've ever been since 2010. So that's just a number that people need to understand. And again, we've got 1.8 over pre-pandemic levels. So something good to know. So forbearance plans. So this is just a good little chart. And again, Black Knight, it's like my favorite place to go for all of these numbers. And I always check it. I tend to check it every 2 weeks right now just to see where we're at and what's going on. You can see this line right here is the total number. And then these are Fannie and Freddie loans. And then you've got FHA and VA. And then you've got other. And the other, again, I want you to remember that those are going to be Jenny loans, which, does anybody know what the Jenny loans are? I know you have to unmute again. Anybody? All right, I'll explain that a little bit. And then you've got portfolio loans and some other loans that are probably linked with investors, right, you guys? But this is a really telling, these are telling graphs here. So loans in forbearance, you can see Fannie and Freddie have got the 1.4, and then FHA and VA have 1.3. The others making up another million. So you've got that total over there. And you can kind of see what's going on. And I just think it's important to be able to look at this. I mean, you can see we spiked, obviously, and we've just kind of stayed steady. You can see the small dip in July, which, again, you've got to remember that was because people then actually moved forward and paid. But you guys, I mean, that's that little dip, there's still a really big amount here. This is where we started. So I just want you to remember this, because while it feels like, oh, a lot of people paid, there's still a lot of people that didn't come out of forbearance, and we are going to see that in the next couple of months. Okay, so looking ahead, the 600 pandemic benefits check stopped due to Congress. That was stopped because of Congress bickering, obviously. I think that they just moved forward. I don't know. Maybe somebody can tell me. I was trying to look it up. I believe that there's a $400 payment coming out now, or somebody can chat that for me. But at any rate, they're still bickering over, what it needs to look like. As long as we continue to pump money into the government, or pump money from the government into our pockets and into the pockets of the people that have lost their jobs, we will continue to kind of see this weird inflation of like people still paying things, right? Because a lot of people still pay their mortgage. That's a choice that they make as opposed to not paying that. We're now going into the 5th week of the missed weekly checks. So I know that people are starting to feel it a lot more at the moment. And then I put this will, could, and should, however you wish to look at it, send the delinquency and the forbearance numbers higher at some point. And then we should see the financial pressure building from this. The financial pressure, though, is still really low because it's not like it was back in 2006 to 2010. You know, we don't have a ton of people that have homes where they have no equity in them at the moment, right? And we're seeing, you know, crazy numbers. I mean, so the home I told you about with 30 plus offers on it, you guys, we are probably going to settle, you know, like $60,000 over where it should have been. Now, are we going to potentially have an appraisal issue? Potentially, right? If they didn't waive the appraisal. But what we're seeing is, you know, we've got really, really high numbers happening. And so with our sales prices, and so we aren't seeing people losing equity yet or at all. There is a possibility though, as we start to see things tank a little bit, there's a possibility of prices coming down, and we just got to wait it out and see what happens. But for right now, this is where we're at. And then one of the biggest things to note was I just asked, you know, who knows what a Ginnie Mae is? You know, that's a backed loan in forbearance. So here's the deal. Those are people that are lower income families. And we tend to see, you know, race come into play there too. And different ethnic groups are in the lower income areas. And that's really, I mean, we are seeing a number of those in forbearance. And so what that means is when we have the lower income and they start losing, right? They're losing their jobs at a rapid rate, right? When they start losing and they're not able to pay, it starts to funnel up to everybody else. And so that's what we're seeing at the moment. You know what, before I go any further, let me stop and just ask if there's any questions, because I'm kind of flying through some of this stuff. And I want to make sure I haven't just missed anything. So everybody's kind of tracking with me, yes? All right, cool. So again, this is a Black Knight mortgage monitor. Again, you can find this, if you Google it, you can find this stuff anywhere. And I think sometimes reading some of these things can be a pain in the butt. But what I love about this one is that you've got the month over month change, you guys, and then year over year. So, you know, for example, with our total US loan delinquency rates right now, which are loans that are 30 or more days past due, right? But not in foreclosure yet. You've got, you know, 6.91 in July alone. And again, the numbers aren't fully out yet in August. They won't be until we're in September, and we're close. And then so month over month, you've got, you know, minus 8.1 or 8.9 rather, which again, I told you that, you know, people are coming out of that deferment, right? So they're coming out of forbearance, and what they've done is they've made those payments. So you're going to see a decrease here, but year over year, we're going to see an increase of 99%, which is a lot. Total U.S. foreclosure presale. So this is a number that you want to keep your eyes on as we move into the fall. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know what's happening or what's going to happen, but there is a strong possibility that we're going to see an uptick here. But year over year, we're still at minus 28% because a lot of people have equity in their home right now, and they chose to go into forbearance, but then started to pay. So we're still not seeing these numbers, you know, where we think they might go. But as the assistance from the government, you know, goes away, if it goes away fully, you might see this number start to tick up. When we start to see that number tick up, then that means it's starting to funnel through and people are going to have more and more of an issue. I think that, you know, if we really do have a downfall here, you guys, like, I think we'll see a lot of it with investors first, potentially, because they're investing in areas where people may not be able to move forward with payment. Hopefully that makes sense. Total U.S. foreclosure starts. So again, you know, we're going to be looking at those numbers, and you're going to want to keep an eye on all of that. And I like that it does the 12-month trend as well. I think that's a cool thing over there. the monthly prepayment rate. So again, we're up here, which is great. Foreclosure sales as percentage of 90 plus. So you can see what the numbers are doing there. So right here, this is squared out because I think that that's an important thing to really keep track of too. And again, this comes out every single month. So you can grab these numbers so that you can better educate the people that you're meeting with and your clients and customers. But numbers of properties that are 30 or more days past due, but not in foreclosure. So again, you know, past due is at 36, you know, 3,692,000. That is minus 342, which feels really good to have that minus, right? But again, we're up over last year at 1.8, right? And so you've just got to remember that people are coming out of it, and there's definitely people that are paying. So that's awesome news. But if we don't see that number continue to tick up there, or I guess I should say tick down right here, then that's when we'll start to see the fallout. Number of properties that are 90 days or more past due, but not in foreclosure. Again, you can see the numbers here. So 90 days, remember we had April, May, June, July. So that's going to be one of the big numbers that we're going to want to continue to watch as real estate professionals. I think it's going to be very important. Number of properties in foreclosure, pre-sale inventory, those numbers they put on here, and then the number of properties that are 30 or more days past due or in foreclosure. And again, this is one of those numbers that we're going to want to be watching, right? Now we're down from last month, but we're up over last year. So again, make sure that you're taking a look at all of that stuff. And, you know, as somebody who is meeting with people regularly, this is, I believe this is a graph that should be in front of you and your clients on a regular basis, especially when we're pricing things, right? Right now, we're like, hey, we could probably get away with a higher price on this home because we have multiple offers on most homes. And so, you know, that's a conversation that you can have at the moment. But if people continue to go delinquent and things keep happening the way that they are happening, then we could see short sales come back in, but it's going to take a good amount of time. This isn't something that we should see like right away because we have such low inventory and things are good. So Nancy started us off with a really good question around, you know, if we have somebody who went into forbearance, you know, what does that look like for selling the home? Well, for me, it is very much looking at, okay, like we have to go back to the basics of how much equity do you actually have in the home, right? And that's just pulling up a very simple estimate of closing costs and running those numbers with them, Nancy, and really understanding. And then, so if they went into forbearance, they should have gotten a letter from the bank, and the bank will explain the terms that everybody agreed upon. A lot of people did not understand the terms that they were agreeing to. So some people owed all 3 months come July, unless they moved forbearance again, or if they asked to be deferred to the end of the period, right? There are also deferrals where you could do a certain, so you could take 3 months where you are in forbearance and then you take that amount, whatever that is, and stretch it over the course of the rest of the year. But they got a letter from the bank explaining what their terms are. And so unless we actually see that letter, we don't fully know what their terms were. So hopefully they do before they went into it. But a lot of people just did it because they heard people saying, go do it. Just take advantage of it. It'll be fine. It's not going to hurt your credit score at all. It's not going to do anything because of COVID and the CARES Act, right? The CARES Act was a big piece to that. But what happened is they didn't understand, is it due on July 1st? And is it all due? Are they going to stretch it out over the course of however many months? Is it tacked on to the end of my loan? Like, what does that look like? So again, they should have documentation that shows that. And then what you have to figure out, well, one, the CARES Act protected us from having interest applied to that, which is fabulous, right? Because if there was interest applied to it, then that's even more annoying because then you've got to calculate that out. But because we know that, most of the time what you would have to do, Nancy, is say, okay, do you have a letter? Can we look at it together? Let's just see what you signed up for so that I don't give you the wrong information. And then if they don't, they can call their bank, they can get a copy of it right away. But then what you would want to do is take the estimated closing costs and figure out, like, do they owe those 3 months? So like if they want to sell and they went into forbearance, in other words, most likely those 3 months, they have to be paid off and then they can go ahead and sell, or they'll just tack it into the loan payoff or the mortgage payoff when you're actually getting ready to sell. Does that make sense? So getting a copy of the letter, in my opinion, is really big. So if you're meeting with somebody at a listing appointment, I think to be able to ask them like, hey, can I get a copy of this? Can I see it? That way I can advise you properly. That's really important so that you know what happened. And then I think, you know, if you've got people that are getting in trouble. So what would in trouble look like these days, right? It looks so different than it did like a couple of years ago. In trouble looks like, okay, I have no income coming in. I went into forbearance. I'm going to owe it at the, you know, the end of the 3 months, or right now they could have actually done so at this point, once their forbearance came due, they could have either asked for an extension and went and had more months tacked in there. They could have asked for a deferment, which means it's going to push to the end, or they could have asked for a loan modification. That's why we went over those things, right? And so if they asked for a loan modification, things are going to look a lot different. How they get into trouble is if they continue to stack that up and they go past 90 days with no payment. Then we've got to really figure out how much equity do you have in the home, right? What's your mortgage payoff right now? And they can call and get a mortgage payoff, right? You don't want to just look at the bank account, because if they've made a, you know, if they did forbearance or deferral or any of those things, that number might not be exactly right. So I would actually ask for an actual mortgage payoff statement from the bank. They can get a copy of that. You can take a look at it, and then you would put that number in the estimated closing costs so that you know if they're going to be able to pay you and pay everybody else in their life off. When we're going to see people go into trouble is when they just purchased the house, you know, a year or two ago. So we do have somebody who, you know, got into trouble, and we had their home listed. So they bought the home last year, right? Which isn't very much time to like really put down enough and to pay into your, into the bank interest, right? Or into the mortgage interest. So they bought it last year. This year, there is a major health problem with the person that now cannot work because of COVID, and she's not able to do anything. She's got cancer. And so now she needs to sell the home again. That's where I'm going to see them go into trouble, right? Because she was the only person that was able to pay the mortgage. She now is in forbearance. She only had the home for a year. It hasn't increased that much. Now there's actually, I mean, she's actually able to get a lot more this year because she redid her bathrooms last year. She's able to get a lot more this year than she was last year, but it's not that much, and she hasn't paid enough in. So when we really calculated and we sat down and actually did the numbers in front of everybody, right, and sat at the house and we're like, okay, let's do the actual estimated closing costs, and we got a proper mortgage payoff. We looked at everything. We were like, okay, so you are in short sale territory because she did not have enough equity there to pay off. Even if she can walk away with a couple bucks, that would have been great. She's not going to be able to do that if she pays us off and her taxes and all those things. But you really do need to move forward with the estimate. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so let me stop again. Are there any questions at this point? Okay. So I'm going to go into a little bit more of what somebody else, so I gave you an example of where somebody might be in trouble. That's like an easy example of trouble right now, right? When you do a short sale, they'll have to explain what their problem is and why they're having to do a short sale. And in her case, it's a really easy one, right? I have cancer. I can't work. My company isn't allowing me to work from home, and I can't get another job because unemployment's really ridiculous right now. And so here I am, you know, as somebody with no income, a home I bought last year. I'm going to need to do a short sale. That's my hardship, right? They would have to create a hardship letter. That's a really easy one. Where are we going to see problems and where are people going to be in trouble when they actually had equity in their home is when we go for months with no income, obviously, right? So you're going to see that happen. And then we're going to see issues with if we do have people that go to foreclosure in the different neighborhoods, there could be a lower price point. But here's the deal. this is the funky thing about where we're at this time around, as opposed to years ago, is that there shouldn't be. It should have multiple offers right now. If we price it properly, it'll have multiple offers. And we should be able to sell that at above asking price most of the time if it's a solid home. Now, we think of short sales and foreclosures sometimes as like, you know, mold and all kinds of issues. That's another one of those problem areas, right? So like if we get somebody, for example, who, you know, never kept up with their septic and never kept up with the well, and they have those issues and they need a whole new septic system or whatever, and now they're going to sell and they went into forbearance, that's when you're going to see, you know, the bigger issues. But again, it's not a lot of people with no equity, because, you know, lenders were actually loaning money properly this time around, as opposed to when we were back in 2006. But we're also inflating numbers right now with low inventory. And so no crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen. However, my team and myself, we are prepping to see some short sales come back. We think that it's a possibility because of all of this. And a lot of those, you know, Freddie and Fannie backed loans, FHA and VA, like all of those, they're all sitting there right now and we don't really know what's going on. So if we see them continue in forbearance, you know, past November and December, then we'll see some foreclosures for sure. And then that could potentially get us into the short sale territory again for certain neighborhoods and certain states. Make sense? Okay. Well, this is going a lot faster than I thought it was going to go. So let me open it up again for questions. And then I'm going to show you some of the websites on how to get there for if you want more information. And let me do this too. So forbearance numbers. So one of my favorite things to do, which I mean, I know a lot of us are busy, so a lot of people don't sit around just looking at these numbers, but I believe that it's really important to be able to educate our clients. If you just come in and you just Google forbearance numbers, right? And you can go to the news. If you just go to the news tab in Google, it makes it really easy to start to see like what's going on. And I know, you know, I told you guys, so here, let me just pull up some of the stuff. Like you can see some of these graphs. Well, this is probably not the best one to pull up. But if you just continue to look at forbearance numbers, you'll see where you're going. And I'm going to post in our Facebook groups how to get to all the ones that I was showing you guys. But being able to see the delinquencies and to watch them spike and to watch the news and go through all this stuff, it's really important just to see it. But to be able to pull all the numbers that I pulled you guys and to talk through those things and to understand what's going on with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and, you know, Jenny loans and all those different things, it's really, in my opinion, very important, because when you're sitting in front of somebody at a listing and they're concerned about their value, they're concerned about what's going on in the world, and they're really not sure what to do because they've lost their job or they went into forbearance because they can't pay and they're like, I don't know what's going to happen. You know, it's so good for us to be the professionals that can say, listen, this is one of those things where all we have to do is let's call your bank. Let's get a formal payoff. Let me do an estimate of closing costs and walk you through what this is going to look like. And we can figure out really quickly, are you in short sale territory or are you not? Because based on what's happening in the world right now. So like right now, prices are high. We're able to get people really high amounts, right? On a listing, as long, like I said, as long as we've priced it properly and we're not ridiculous with that. And it is showing pretty well. Like we're able to get that sold within 2 days with multiple offers, right? So if that's the case, most of these people, you know, that went into forbearance and stuff, they'll be fine. They just got to pay it all off, get it done, and move forward. Anybody who, you know, if they have a hardship like the cancer survivor I told you about, or any of those things where they've lost their job and there's more to the story, and they just bought the home a couple of years ago or whatever, then those are the people that we really have to be concerned about. Make sense for right now? And I can continue to like put some of these numbers up so that we can continue to look at them as a group too over the next couple of months. I will put the website and where to go so that you can see the things that I sent, and then I'll put the slide deck in there so that you guys have those numbers. You could take those numbers and just grab the slides if you need to use them for anybody. Feel free. I'll put the link to them so that you can grab them really easily. What else? Does anybody, let me see if there's anything in the chat.
So Lindsay,
Hey, Jeff.
hi. Can you go over real quickly again their credit issues when they do forbearance, what their credit issues are if they do a short sale, and what happens with credit and their ability to find a new place?
Yeah. So if you have to do a short sale, you mean what happens to their credit, right?
Right.
Okay, cool. Because forbearance, technically right now, that's the beautiful, quote unquote, beautiful thing about the CARES Act is that there should be no dings to credit and there should be no extra interest added on for anything right now. Now, if the government cannot figure things out and figure out where they stand on that, that is another thing I'm a little bit worried about. And like, if you listen to Dave Ramsey or any of those people, they're worried about it too. And they don't trust the government. I don't agree with everything that they're saying, like Susie Orman and everybody. I don't agree with all of it, but to a certain degree, we don't know what's going to happen. Like when the CARES Act's gone, what happens with all those payments, and like, do they tack interest on all of a sudden because now it's not there? Or, we don't know because there was nothing mentioned about that. And all the paperwork that did come over to people when they went into forbearance or, deferred, none of it says anything about once the CARES Act is done, what that's going to look like. So there's some iffy things happening out there in our world right now, which I think is just going to mess things up later for everybody. But should somebody go into a short sale? Yeah. So you're looking at, when you go into foreclosure, you're looking at 7 to 10 years of getting out unless you go to a credit repair person, which they're amazing. If you've never sent somebody to them, or if you've got a lender that can help them walk through that, like we use Approved Mortgage, which is Ken Feynman and those guys. They're amazing and they can help repair credit for almost anybody. But 7 to 10 years for foreclosure, you can, with a short sale, you can repair your credit within 3 years if you go to a credit repair person. Normally it's what they say within 3 to 5 years. So then that means that they're renting. And that's also a big problem right now, right? Because renting, we're seeing low inventory for rentals as well. And when their credit score, so they do get hit credit score wise, and it will take them down. I mean, if they had really great credit, it can take them down into the 6s, Jeff, and below. And if it does take them down there, then there are people that won't even look at
their application.
Yeah. So what I've always explained to people is once that happens, I believe very strongly in the credit repair people. They're amazing. I also believe really strongly that they should let them see the short sale paperwork. They should submit that with their rental applications. And then they should also let them see, like their hardship letter, if they're willing. I think the hardship letter can go and they can say, hey, this is the hardship letter I had to actually provide in order to my bank in order to do a short sale. My credit's only going to be dinged for 3 to 5 years. Like, if you're willing to take a chance on me, here's my bank account, here's everything that I've got. But yeah, it really sets them up to have a hard time for the next couple of years. I wish that was better news. But 3 to 5 years is far better than 10. So that's why I always tell people is the foreclosure is the way worse news.
And how about bankruptcy?
Bankruptcy, I don't know how many years that is actually. I feel like we used to tell people it was 15 years. I have to research that again. But it'll hit you, but then it wipes things out too. So that's a great question. I'm gonna look it up and I'll send it to everybody that's on here, or I'll put it in our group, I guess I should say. But I believe it dings your credit, and then the bankruptcy wipes some of it out, and I don't know how all that works, so I'll get you more information.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't know, we are like, we haven't really seen, we have 2 short sales that we're doing right now. If anybody, I'll just say, if anybody ever has to do one or you want to learn about that, let us know. We're starting to think through, like, should we do your agent leadership? So your ALC is starting to think through, do we do some short sale training, which we may do, but we're just not sure that we're going in that direction because we really don't know. I will say that as we watch those numbers that I showed you guys, I think we will have a better idea of it probably come October. And if you talk to people like myself and Matt Fedek and other people that did this a lot, we all think that it's a possibility that's coming. So I'm getting ready to have like a short sale calculator on my website and all that stuff because it just feels and seems like it might go that direction. Okay, yes, please, short sale training. Yeah. Listen, short sale training is, there's a lot with short sales. And I will tell you, if you decide to go down that path and take a listing that's going to be a short sale, you can always call me and you can, we've had people give us referral fees for just helping them negotiate it and figure those things out. We can do it. And then we can, give you referral fees, or we can just teach you what that looks like, right? And I will tell you that if you do decide to go in the short sale path with a listing, your best bet is to make sure you have all the documentation you need up front, and I can get you all of that so you know what you're doing. And then you need to make sure that when you submit for the short sale, I believe that you should call every single week. And I call every single Tuesday on every single short sale. And the reason for that is they're all busy on Monday, and Tuesday things calm down a little bit so you can get through to them a little bit better. And so we place all of our calls on Tuesdays and then call every person that's associated with it. And we just keep the ball moving forward. But the long and short of the short sale, which maybe we'll get a class together soon here for that. The long and short of a short sale is that you are going to list the property, get it under contract, submit it to the bank. The bank's going to do a BPO, basically an appraisal. They'll always do their own, even though the buyer's going to be doing it too. And then they give it to a processor to process all of those files. So every single document that they need to submit, almost like a loan, you guys, there's a ton of documents there, hardship letter, all kinds of stuff. But it goes through the processor, then that processor passes it over to the negotiator. The negotiator looks at the BPO or the appraised value and then decides what they'd like to accept offer-wise on the property. So processor's normally a month. Negotiator, whether I like it or not, has it for a month. And then they give you 30 days to close. And that is like, there's so much more to it, but that's like the process of that, just so you know. Any other questions? This is a lot. But
So Lindsay,
yeah.
if I may, I'm being solicited regularly by companies, and there was a short sale maps class offered as well, suggesting that we should be doing BPOs in hopes of getting listings from banks and companies that will have properties that they need to sell. Is that a legitimate
Thing.
Is that real?
I go back and forth on that, Jeff, because I will say that back in the day, that's Matt and I, we did them in order to get REOs more than anything else. And so that was a way of us doing that. However, it was very few and far between. I will tell you that I think we did really well with all that stuff because we just hit the internet. I mean, right? Short sales in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Like, if you buy that, people are going to Google and they're going to come to your website. So if you have something that basically says, want to know if, short sales right for you, then you're good to go. But yeah, BPOs, I'm not a big fan. I would also, if you're going to do them, you need to ask them, how much money are they willing to pay you? And then you've got to figure out, well, what is your time worth? And and then weigh that out. The more that you do with them, they will send you properties if they can count on you. But I can also tell you that they send you to really ridiculous properties that sometimes it's ridiculous. The amount of money that you get to go all the way out to that property, and then it's like a crazy property that they have to sell, and here you've spent 2 hours or whatever. So just remember that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Bottom line, ask them how much they're going to pay you. Probably the best way. Anything else? You guys, in my, just to give you my email, so it's Linzee, which is Linzee, and then at cipraniteam.com, which is CIPRANI team.com. You can hit me up on Facebook, wherever. If you have any questions or I didn't answer anything or any of that stuff, let me know. If you need any help with short sales, let me know. I'm always here to help you guys. And I think, you know, maybe we will move forward and do some short sale training so that you don't have to go through maps and do all that stuff. You know, your ALC is looking into that stuff. So just know that. All right. Okay. I'll put all the slide deck up so you guys have those numbers, and then give you links to where you can go. And if you need me, let me know. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for all your information.
You're welcome. I hope it helped.
It sure did.